But that's not the point of this car. I'm not trying to make it go fast. I want it to be fun. That's what I think is the biggest aspect of it, because cars these days are so much faster than anything else out there. I think the fun aspect is the one that's the most important.
Surprise, we've been running into each other all day, but finally we got a second to talk.
How's it going, Ezekiel? I'm Alex, Sushpants.
So Sushpants, I am absolutely excited. You brought the Japanese variant and the US variant of, at one point, a very unloved car. I'm personally interested in the differences between the JDM and the US variants of these cars. But before that, spoiler, Battle Garage lost the video of you talking about the...
I spilled my guts out. And then they just lost the video.
Oh my God.
And like the guys that were there, they were crying. They loved the story, and then something happened and the video was gone.
Sushpants, one more time. You obviously have a fascination with these chassis if you bought
I do.
two of almost, you know, the same. So in a nutshell, what is the history behind you and the FX16?
So the FX16, this was the first one that I got. I got it at the time when they were not loved. So I ended up getting it for 450 bucks. Everything was there, but it needed a lot of work to get fixed up. And what drew me to it was when I was a little kid, my mom had a Toyota Corolla, the basic 1.6 liter single overhead cam, the carbureted one. But the car came with the brochure for the twin cam for the FX16. And since I was a little kid, I always wanted it because like it had the cool picture of the 4AG engine. It was just awesome. It got me like really excited. And I had a bit of a family tragedy that happened where I lost my mom, and a way that I grieved through it is I ended up restoring this car. So as I was restoring this car and it was becoming what it became, I ended up kind of getting through that particularly painful one in my life. But what ended up resulting is a car that not only fulfilled my fantasies, but became even more, that I ended up getting another one. So now I call these the twin cam twins. And so this is the Japanese A82. It was called the FX GT in Japan, while in the US it was the FX16. And some obvious differences is that in Japan they didn't have the same crash standards, so the bumper is completely different on the JDM car. And in my opinion, I think it fits the overall look of the car. That boxy shape, it doesn't stick out very far. It's a really nice petite little bumper, and what's cool is if you look at the cutouts, they're the same size as the blinkers, and those are actual functional vents, and there's no bumper bar there, so it's really, really lightweight. Well, in the US, they had to meet the bumper standards, so the bumper sticks out quite a bit further. Ended up changing the look of the car a little bit, but I still think it looks cool in its own way. It almost looks like they're two different cars, even though they're the same chassis. When you pop the hoods, they still have the same 4AG engine. The US spec one had obviously EGR and some extra stuff that the Japanese one didn't. But overall, they do have a lot of similarities, but also a lot of differences. And some notable ones is that the US spec one, when you leave the lights on and you open the door, it makes that annoying buzzing noise, that in the Japanese one, it makes a very pleasant bong noise. So, and it remembers, so if you leave the lights on, you open the door, and you close the door, you open it again, it doesn't bong anymore.
What?
It's wild, but lots of cool stuff on these twin cam twins.
Can we see the rear ends?
Yeah, for sure.
The rear ends of the car, not your rear end.
Well, I mean, the rear ends, it's the same story. So if you look, the bumper is way more compact on the Japanese one. And one really cool thing, so the US spec, the lights for the rear license plate was on the sides, but on the Japanese one, they just put the lights on the bumper, so it's actually upward firing lights. They fire up on the rear license plate. But again, I think they both look great. And this one came to me from Osaka, Japan. And one thing it's missing is the rear headrests. That's one thing I gotta get sourced. But the rest of it's all there. It has the original deck. If you look, it has the stereo with the equalizer, which is like pretty darn cool. It has the trunk cover, which is typically very much destroyed. And there's so few of these in Japan. I think when I got this one, there was something like only 10 left, so now there's one less even. These are the lightest 4AG powered vehicles from the era. So the MR2, the A86, and the A82 was the lightest of all three of them. So it was really the quickest 4AG powered vehicle.
So my first question to you, build quality. Do you notice a difference between the Japanese and the US one? And I'll preface it like this. I think the Japanese A86s have far better build quality than the US variants. So as far as these, what do you think?
You know, it's hard for me to say because this one was in such bad shape when I got it. So it wouldn't be fair to rank it, but this one has been really nice. Like everything is good, but it does have the door hinge issue, like all the Corollas do, where it has the droop on the driver's door.
I like to call it the reverse Lambo doors.
Yeah, exactly. But everything else that I've been working on, finish is phenomenal. And this one does have an undercoating on it, which is pretty wild.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you can kind of see a little bit through the fenders, but it has an undercoating, so it has like no rust underneath, but it has rust everywhere else. This is like the most common area for the rust to happen on these hatches.
Yeah.
The water accumulates there, but considering this car has lived its entire life in Japan, it's got like hardly any rust on it. And if it is, like it's all usually just little surface steels.
Moving on to the interior, is this like the same interior fabric? Did these come with like a different color or like?
This looks like it's the same interior color like the US spec one did. So it has the same kind of checkered print, but mine over there is the navy blue. This is the gray interior. And we can pop it open just so you can see.
Yeah. Prefacing the AE86, even the interior fabrics are different on a Japanese versus US AE86.
Interesting. So this has the sunroof in it.
Oh,
power windows, power mirrors, power locks, functional air conditioning. It came with this really sweet twin cam 16 steering wheel, leather wrap, the original one. The gauges are swapped from one side to the other. So the tachometer and the speedometer are swapped from the US spec. They're one and the other, and also they have a different color. They're orange versus the white and green that the US spec had.
What is this right here?
So that's just a little cubby holder. So that pops open, that's where you can stash your stuff.
Oh, interesting. Does the US one have that?
It does, but it doesn't have a little flap door that opens up like that.
Do you mind if I open the flap?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, if it moves, I gotta touch it. That's always that's always how it is. Oh wow. Wow, so cool.
The seat has like a world of adjustability. It has an adjustable lumbar support. So there's a handle on the other side that you can cycle through, and there's a piece that moves out to push out in your lumbar. And then it has another knob that you can rotate that tightens these wings.
Oh my
so
God.
Depending on how big you are, you can make the seat fit you exactly perfect. And you can of course raise it and lower it.
This is how you raise and lower the seat?
Yeah.
How do you raise and lower the seat?
So you pull that little handle out like this.
What the?
And then this whole seat can...
Oh, this is ridiculous. Can you do that one more time?
And then, so this guy extends out, and then I think you have to sit on it to put the weight to make it come back down. But you can raise and lower the seat. And the FX16 has the same function too, which is pretty darn cool. So if you're a little bit shorter and you can't see over, you don't need to put a pillow under your seat.
Yeah.
You can literally just raise the seat up. And so the previous owner, Masakazu, he had the Willens harness as well in here. His intentions were to track race this car, but he never ended up getting around to it. So the idea is that I'm going to give him the opportunity to buy the car back for me in 6 years, 5 or 6 years, whenever he's ready. So that way, you know, I didn't buy this car necessarily just like, oh, it's mine, I'm going to keep it forever. I wanted to preserve this vehicle, just kind of like how I preserved this one as well, because there's so few AA2s, and I feel like they're slowly coming up in popularity. I hope that more of them survive, because they're really, really cool cars that just people didn't really know about. And I know I've been looking more into the history. Kiichi Tsuchiya actually raced an AA2.
Oh my God.
Before he raced the 86.
Oh wow.
Which is kind of wild. Like, I'd be curious how he feels about the A2s if he remembers this though. So I know they raced a bunch of them in Australia and New Zealand. They're still really popular cars over there. And I think they refer to these as the Twinkies.
Oh my God.
Because they're twin cams. And then they have the giant lettering on the side. Twin cam 16. The US one did not have such a in-your-face twin camming action.
Can we take a look at the inside of this guy?
I tried to keep it relatively original on the inside. So the seats, these have been reupholstered. I had them reupholstered in similar fabric, so that way the pattern and everything matches up, because these seats were trashed. But I had the fella that reupholstered them build up some of the supports on it, so that way you actually fit in the seat and you don't bounce around while you're driving. The interior, I re-dyed a lot of the plastics, so that way all of them match the same color again.
Oh, wow.
Same thing also, just like every part that looked like it was a little bit worn or damaged, I just replaced to try to make it be original. I didn't want this to be a stripped out car.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be, my goal was a ultimate responsive street toge car.
Yeah, and then no JDM cubby flap.
No JDM cubby flap, but look,
Man.
still has the extension to raise the seat up and down. You know, extend for your pleasure.
That's gotta be the most ridiculous like seat control I've seen ever.
I guess let's pop the hoods just so you can see those.
Oh yeah.
Both the same chassis, but just JDM versus USDM.
Oh yeah.
So this car has the 4AG, obviously the 16 valve. The cool difference about the JDM version is that it had a map sensor instead of a flappy door for air metering. So this meant that the Japanese version had a little bit more power than the US spec one did, because the US spec one had the EGR valve and it had some extra emission stuff that ended up cutting in the total power performance. And the previous owner, Masakazu, he swapped the triangulated strut bar like the US spec one has for just a standard strut bar across. But overall, this is like a very much factory stock as it comes from Toyota. You'll notice one big difference is that obviously this one was made in Japan, while the US spec one was made here in Fremont at the Numi plant. So this has the Numi badge. So this car was put together by Americans.
Wow, I had no idea, and I've never seen that badge before.
Really?
No, never.
This is the first time that Americans proved that they weren't lazy and couldn't put together good quality cars, because their build quality was very, very good.
Oh,
they had the same process where anybody can shut down the production line at any point if they saw anything that looked like it was off.
Well, I guess this is a little more nerdy, but I think because they partnered with Toyota, so they did the TPS everything, you know? Like
exactly.
Toyota production system, yeah.
Exactly, because the trick back then was it wasn't so much, the system was itself unique, but it was the right on time delivery.
That's right.
The just in time delivery, that was the thing that really made the difference, is that every part would arrive right when it needed to.
That's right.
And that was the trick that why Toyota wasn't sweating about revealing some of its secrets.
That's right.
This is a 20 valve blacktop 4AG, and it's paired with a C160 6-speed transmission.
What does that come out of?
That came out of the 111 BZR11.
Interesting.
AE1 111.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was the final iteration that they had of the 4AG.
Does it come factory with like a LSD or anything?
It came with an LSD and also without an LSD. And this one is without an LSD, and it really needs it. The power difference between these two is immense. It's night and day difference.
Just as a reminder, what is this dyno at?
This dynoed at 134 at the wheel. I'm not sure if the dyno was reading a little low, because like, man, it feels a heck of a lot faster than that. But I've been going back to the same dyno because all the mods that I've been doing, I try to keep it consistent so I can kind of get an idea of what makes more power and what doesn't. I know one thing I had that was really surprising is I tried a larger tube header because thinking, you know, bigger is better.
Yeah.
And I lost a lot of power.
No,
and particularly a lot of torque. It was like shocking. So one other thing is the US spec cars, it's so much easier to put the ITBs on the AA2s because the brake master cylinder and the clutch, everything is off to the side. While the JDM car, you'll see all of it sitting right in the path of the ITB. So typically most of the guys that are using the right-hand drive cars, they can only run the shortest little trumpets, the little 50 millimeters. Or sometimes they even have to go shorter because they just don't have the room to extend them out.
Seat of the pants, do you think the JDM map sensor car is faster than like a US AFM car?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so. No, this car definitely feels way faster than my FX16 did when I had it. Bone stock with the 16 valve blue top engine in it. It has way more power. Admittedly, I think that you're talking about that everything feels more tight, like just steering feels a lot tighter, shifter feels a lot tighter. There is definitely a difference.
I'm not sure if it's the case with this car too, but even body-wise, for me on the AE86s, like the doors open and shut firmer, better on Japanese cars. Like I don't know what it is, what's up with how poor the US build quality was, but go ahead.
The windows on this move very nicely up and down. Like they actually still move very quickly. And while the US one, it kind of is sticky.
Oh my
and it's a difficult, like just little stuff like that is where you definitely see a big difference.
Yeah.
I have some future plans. I haven't revealed it on my channel yet, but I'm gonna try to use a half radiator from a Honda Civic to open up a channel here and relocate the battery into the trunk. And I want to try to make some sort of a funnel intake so that way I can funnel air directly from the front into the ITBs, which I think would be, one, increase quite a bit of power, help keep the temperatures down, and it might sound even cooler. I'm running MRP coilover suspension. Barry ended up helping me out getting those. And some other cool stuff that I did is I rebuilt my steering on this car. So
that's right.
The steering rack that I have on there, it's using AE86 inner tie rods with T3 outer tie rods. So they custom made me a set, and now they should be available on the T3 website for the AE2 chassis, because when you put sticky tires on these, the only tie rod ends, the only ones that you can pick up are these kind of like cheapy Taiwan ones that just break all the time. Like I'd be going through them at least one every 6 months because the grip level was so high, it would just bust them. But now these T3 ones have been solid. Future stuff, I'd love to do some more aggressive cams, get some cool stuff from Grant at Battle Garage, because I still think that I can squeeze out a little bit more juice out of this. I want to keep it naturally aspirated. I know I can make a lot more power with a turbo, but that's not the point of this car. I'm not trying to make it go fast. I want it to be fun. That's what I think is the biggest aspect of it, because cars these days are so much faster than anything else out there. I think the fun aspect is the one that's the most important.